Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. My name is Maggie. I am your host, your business mentor, and your human design expert. And today we are talking about one of my favorite topics. And I feel like I say that every episode, but we are talking about your authentic voice activation. So basically how to stop sounding generic online. And it's not that you're not unoriginal, okay? It might just be that you're disconnected from your energetic voice, and your authenticity isn't necessarily about shouting louder from the rooftops. It's more about turning back and tuning back into your frequency. So if we're thinking about authenticity in 2025, right? It is a buzzword, and for me, I feel like authentic and authenticity is definitely something that has spilled over from the health and wellness, the yoga industry, right? 5-10 years ago when I was more invested in the yoga industry, everyone was always talking about your authentic voice. And sometimes those buzzwords are just that, buzzwords, and we all kind of start echoing things that everybody else echoes, and pretty soon one day you kind of wake up, at least for me, I did, you kind of wake up and you're kind of like, this doesn't feel like me. I don't feel like I'm sharing what I actually want to be sharing. And in last week's episode, you'll know that if you listened to last week's episode, I asked you a question to think about at the very top of the episode. And that question was, what parts of yourself have you been told are too much, but are actually things that you really want to be sharing? Now, I'm going to ask that question again because this comes back to your authentic voice activation, right? If you want to stop sounding generic online, you have to find your voice, whether your throat is defined or undefined, right? So you have to really tap into that. You have to do some self-discovery. And, I would definitely say that if you're an entrepreneur, you have to continue that evolution. It's not that you have to change drastically, but you do have to evolve over time. And over time, your voice will evolve with you. You will notice some of those changes and shifts. And I think sometimes when we think about authenticity, people are like, oh, well, I can't possibly change because I have to be authentic. I have to be me. Except for me, I feel like to change is to be authentic. If I'm not growing, changing, shifting, ebbing, and flowing with what's happening, it's going to feel really hard to stay stuck at that point. It's kind of like how some sales tactics from even a couple years ago, they don't always work the same way, right? And they don't, like, it's, you have to evolve. Full stop. You have to evolve. So right now, let's think about the illusion of authenticity. And when I say the illusion, right, I want to help you normalize it's not necessarily normalizing the fear of sounding fake, but I really want to reframe it to be, how can you sound like you and be unapologetically you? Because if you fear sounding fake, oh, I can't possibly say this, or I can't possibly do that, you're always going to be in that, like, what if? Now, something I want to bring up here, and in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about AI and using like ChatGPT. And something that I think is kind of hilarious is that, everybody who uses AI, and I'm sure if you've used ChatGPT, you've seen this. It's the M dash drama, right? Where it's the longer dash. And, I think it's so funny when people say, oh, if you're using the M dash, obviously you're using AI. And that's not the truth, because I've been using the dash and the M dash for quite a long time in what I do. Do I notice it more when I use ChatGPT to help me? Yes. However, here's the thing. The better the prompts you put into your AI, the better the output. So you can tell it to not use the M dash. You can tell it to not use emojis. So I don't I don't understand why people are all hot and bothered about that. However, let's get back to the illusion of authenticity. But this is what I'm talking about, right? Somebody notices a thing and the internet is an echo chamber, and now everybody is terrified. I can't use too many emojis. I can't use the M dash. I can't use this. And so now you're boxing yourself in. And last week, when I talked about your niche, I also talked about being boxed in there. So if you're in this constant state of like, I must be boxed in, instead of utilizing what you have and doing what you enjoy, I love using emojis. I love using an M dash, right? Do I use the M dash correctly? I mean, I like to think so. However, when I was in college in like 2005, yes, I'm that old. So back in 2005, I want to take you on this story because it is pertinent to this. Okay. So when I was a sophomore in college, I took an English class, and the teacher in there almost every day. And this was like, just like a normal sophomore, like whatever English class, like for gen eds. Every day she came in and she stood at the front of the class and she would start talking about whatever we were going to be talking about. And at least once per class, she would say, well, you're not English majors, so you probably won't get this. And like, just put that on us. And for a long time, I actually thought, oh, I can't write because I'm not an English major. So like, I can't possibly tell a story. I can't possibly like write. And then, as I grew, as I left college and I went into corporate, I assumed I couldn't write, even though I was part of the technical documentation and training department and I needed to write, but I assumed I couldn't write because I had that story playing in the back of my mind without even really realizing it. Well, now fast forward, 20 years from that point in time. Okay, so now I own businesses, and one of the ways that I connect with people is through social media, is through podcasts, places where I have to write. I need to write in order to, be able to communicate this stuff. And for a long time, I didn't realize I had this illusion that I couldn't write. So therefore it wasn't authentic because, oh my gosh, what if nobody likes my voice? What if nobody can understand? Okay. And so I was unintentionally scared that, like people weren't going to like what I said. And it wasn't until, the last like couple of years that I really kind of took a step back and really looked at that point in my life and kind of like rewrote that story. And like, I mean, I thought it was funny at the time. And a bunch of us in the class who always sat by each other, we would just cackle and just laugh whenever this professor said that. And sometimes like today, 20 years later, I wonder, did that professor realize like what she was doing when she was saying that, or was it just a space filler? Because something else that people don't realize, and I learned this in yoga, being able to teach yoga and allow for space and allow for silence to come in. When I first started teaching yoga, it was very challenging for me to have quiet space in a class. Now, I will say I did learn to teach power yoga, so it was very quick, right? It was a very fast-paced class that I learned to teach. And then when I started broadening my horizons to teach slower yoga, right? It was really challenging for me to not just fill the space. And I've learned, right? I've evolved from there. So had I kept that authentic voice that I had at the time, had I not evolved, I mean, I still talk a lot and I still talk fast. However, I have learned to slow myself down because not every thought that I have needs to come out of my mouth. As an open head center, open head and ajna, not everything that is up there needs to come out. And I need to filter that. So to bring this into human design, if you have an undefined throat, you might feel the need to just kind of spill all of your thoughts and you don't necessarily think them through. Well, same thing if you have an undefined or open head and ajna. Sometimes you might just spill your thoughts out because you're not, because that's just the stream of consciousness. You're reacting, you're taking in your environment. So here's the thing, to wind this all back to the illusion of authenticity, okay? You're not unoriginal, you're just unplugged from your frequency. So if you feel scared and worried and nervous that you're going to sound like a carbon copy of someone else, right? Do you even have anything new to say? Chances are no, because like, is there really anything new to say about business? It's the way we say it, yes. And quite honestly, I could give you the notes that I have for this episode for you to read and go through and make your own, right? Or even just read verbatim. And they would be two totally different episodes because we've lived two totally different lives. So it's not that you're unoriginal, right? You're just unplugged, like I said, from that frequency. So authenticity isn't necessarily how loud you're yelling, right? It's the vibration. And like I've said in other episodes, if your offer, if you don't love your offer, if you don't absolutely love and are committed and confident in what you're doing, your words are not going to hit, right? It's not going to land with people because people can feel that energy. They can feel that vibration. So it's not that, your design, like to bring this to human design, right? Your design doesn't need to be found, right? You just need to remember it. You need to tap into it. And it's so interesting to me how yoga and meditation and all the things that I've done prior to finding human design really have led me to this point of like, when I discovered human design, it was really like coming home. And the things that I've been able to do by accessing different parts of my human design and starting to understand and contemplate and really understanding, does this thing feel like me, right? When I'm kind of looking through the lenses of human design or contemplating things that are popping out at charts and even at my chart at me. Something recently that I've been leaning a lot more into is my motivation in human design. So I have an innocence motivation. So when I can approach something, and now motivation can be taken two ways. It's how you are motivated to act, but it can also be how you motivate others. So it can be this duality, right? So for me, I look at things and if it does not spark joy and feel exciting and, just bring me this curiosity, I will either park the idea in the idea parking lot or I will simply say no, thank you, right? Because sometimes for me, even though I'm a sacral manifesting generator, right? My sacral is defined unconsciously. Consciously, I'm a reflector. So sometimes I have sacral hits, 1,000,000%. In the beginning, they were really challenging for me to access. But, if you take a look at your chart separated design and personality side, you'll see some of these nuances. And again, this is all stuff that when we work together, this is what we work together on to discover some of this stuff. Because if you're not feeling the things that the internet says you should be feeling when you're a manifesting generator, why not go and look a little deeper into it? Why not see what is out there? And why not try to understand that? Because then you can start to understand how you work, the nuance of how you work. And that's what really makes you you. So if you're searching for your authentic voice, if you're searching for this authenticity that where you're like, I don't want to shout from the rooftops. Maybe I want to have just a small little group of people that I can talk to. Okay, great. That feels amazing. Let's follow that thread and see where it goes. Because to be an entrepreneur is to be curious. It is to be someone who is trying things on and letting things go that aren't working. So I wanted to give you a few mindset reframes in this episode because I think when we're talking about authenticity and your voice and just really understanding kind of how you want to show up, it's really something that you kind of have to sit in this energy and understand, how does this feel for me? Okay. So if you're feeling like I need to stand out online, right? Because there's a lot of people saying you've got to stand out online. And I don't necessarily disagree with them, because you do need to stand out online. If you're going to get noticed by cold or cool leads, you're going to need to have something that makes you stand out. However, you can find that thing that's going to help you stand out by tuning inward, by tuning into you, by noticing what is around you, by noticing who is in your network, who's in your world. So if you're feeling like I need to stand out, I want you to reframe that and see, how does it feel to tune in? I need to tune in. I want to tune in. What happens if I tune inward? And I want to know how that lands for you. Now that I have 3 mindset reframes for you here. Okay. So the second one is, I have to sound original. So if you are thinking, oh my gosh, I can't use AI. Everybody's using AI. I'm never going to sound original. Blah, 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 right? Whatever the thing. Okay. So I have to sound original. I would love for you to reframe that to something like, my originality is the byproduct of alignment. So when you are aligned, you will sound original, and whether you use AI or not, because quite honestly, for me, AI is a tool that I can go, help me create ideas, understand the data, which is something totally new to me, right? To be able to input the data from my social medias and have AI analyze the data and have it give me information based on that to say, here are the things that people are engaging with the most. That is really important, right? Because data drives your business. Anyway, that's a whole other episode. Okay. So if you're feeling like you have to sound original, I want you to shift that and reframe this to something along the lines of, my originality is the byproduct of alignment. And then the last one, if you're feeling like there's nothing new in the world, or you're thinking everyone is already saying the things I want to say, I want you to shift that into, no one can say it like me in my frequency. Okay. The things that I talk about on my podcast, in my DMs, with my clients, most of it is nothing new under the sun. I mean, I would consider like the human design stuff the newest stuff that I've brought into my mentoring. But like none of the strategies that I'm sharing are new. Google is free. And I just want to remind you of this, that like, people don't necessarily invest in coaching and mentoring because you're sharing something new. They're investing in it because you've already walked that walk. You've already walked those paths. You know, and can give advice to say, hey, yeah, you can try A, B, and C. B and C worked best for me, but here's how you can do all 3. Here's how you can do that one, right? Because if you're a coach, if you're a mentor and you're speaking to your ideal client, you're probably talking to a version of yourself maybe a year or 2 or 5 ago. So those are some reframes for you. And you know, if you found these reframes helpful, I would love for you to slide into my DMs and let me know what is hitting for you. What in this episode, I would love to know what is really landing for you, how I can support you more, right? Because as you move into and tap into your energetic voice, we're thinking about, for bringing in human design, it's the throat center and the gates in the throat center. Now, I'm not necessarily going to get into all of the gates today. I'm going to get into a couple of them, mostly because I have them defined. Now, if you want to get deeper into the gates of your throat, whether maybe you have an undefined throat and you have no gates, I don't know. If you want to talk more about this, this is a really great time to go to the show notes and click the offer audit and opt into an offer audit, because we can go through all of this in depth for you there. So I want to really kind of bridge human design with communication because I want to help you understand where your authentic voice really lives. So your throat is kind of it's the motor center to get the words out. Now, we can think of the throat center as the hub of manifestation. It's really how energy becomes expression. So if you have, a defined or undefined or open throat, it doesn't necessarily matter, right? We all have these centers in us, and sometimes, right, if it's defined, that's when you have a consistent voice. You have a consistent energy in, more than just your voice. So a defined throat is a consistent voice. People know your tone and energy instantly. And I can say this is true. I do have a very consistent voice. It's funny to me because so many of my yoga students will say, your voice is so consistent. You have a pace, you have a rhythm, all of this stuff. And some of that, yes, is probably from almost 15 years of teaching yoga. But also I have a defined throat. So it's very easy for me to find that cadence and just continue with it, right? I was also in band when I was a kid, and, I rode dressage, I rode horses. So like having that consistency has literally been part of my life since I was like 10 years old. So for the last 30 years. Okay. Now, but I have a defined throat, okay? And that's the key here. So if you have an undefined or open throat, you probably have a more fluid voice and can mirror and amplify the collective, right? So you're meant to speak when you're recognized, not to fill the silence. And something that I find so funny, my daughter has an undefined throat. And she will absolutely just talk to fill silence. It doesn't matter what it is. And she's 8, right? So it's not like, it's also a kid thing, but my son has a defined throat and he does not always talk to fill the silence. So I think it's so interesting to me how my kids' design shows up, and to be able to support them. Something we're always saying to our daughter is like, let's play the quiet game. Who can be quiet for the next 30 seconds, right? So it is funny to me. Okay, so now your throat being defined or undefined is how you express yourself. Okay, so the defined throat, more consistency. The undefined throat is more fluidity and mirroring amplification. So that's how you express yourself. Now, when we think about the gates of the throat, that is the flavor. It's the spice. I love to say the gates are the spice of life because that's what makes you, you. So for me, I actually have 4 gates defined in my chart, in my throat. So I have gate 8, which is the gate of contribution and self-expression. So it's sharing what is uniquely me. So it's not a surprise to me that I share what I do and how I share it because it's very unique to me. Okay. I also have gate 1 defined, and that is creativity and originality. I actually have both of those channels defined with gate 8 and gate 1. So I'm very creative. Most people will say, oh, wow, that's so original. And I just think that's so interesting, kind of funny to me. I also have gate 31, which is the gate of influence through leadership. So again, it's not a surprise that I'm a mentor, that I do the things that I do, that I can help people by being a leader, by standing up and using my voice to amplify and to have that consistency so people understand, oh, hey, that's Maggie. Okay. And then I also have gate 13, which is the deep listener. So I love this gate. I love this gate and I hate this gate, because I am able to listen. And the gate 13, the deep listener gate, is also kind of, I don't want to call it the gossip gate, but people just feel very open to share things with me. And a lot of times people will share things and they'll be like, wow, I don't know why I just told you that. And, when I owned the yoga studio, it was more, I found that to be happening more, which I think is so hilarious. Anyway, again, that is something for another podcast. So if you want to interview me for your podcast, ask me all these things about my very diverse life. I would love to share them with you. So let's get back to the task at hand here, right? An open and undefined head and ajna, definitely going down rabbit holes today. So when you honor your throat's mechanics, you stop forcing expression and you start channeling truth. So sometimes you have to get quiet and you have to let the dust settle before you can start to do this stuff again. So if we're thinking about mindset reframes based on your energetic voice, okay, we're thinking, instead of thinking, I need to find my brand voice, okay, shifting that, reframing that to my voice already exists. I need to stop editing it out. This one hit really hard for me when I was kind of planning this and reading through just some of my information, some of the books that I consult when I prep these. That one really hit hard to me. My voice already exists. I just need to stop editing it. Was like, whoa. And then the second one, and this is something that I find myself thinking a lot. I'm inconsistent. And for me, with a defined throat, one would think that I would be more consistent. But, and this isn't to say that I don't prep myself to be consistent, but today, for example, I'm recording a couple of podcast episodes. So I'm kind of forcing myself to be consistent here. However, I would say, and this is something that my mentors have told to me, right? Instead of saying I'm inconsistent, because that's kind of I don't know, a jab to your ego, right? So instead of I'm inconsistent, I'm fluid and responsive, and that is a strength. And that is a strength because when those times hit where I'm like, ooh, okay, here's ideas for a podcast, and I'm going to execute those things. I am fluid. I am responsive. And yes, that is a strength because today, as I'm recording this, I'll be able to batch a couple of podcast episodes so that I have content for the next couple of weeks and so that I have reels ready to go. That is a strength for you. Now, something that I want to end this episode on is AI templates and the energetic disconnect, because I don't think AI is the problem. Okay. So if you fear sounding fake by using AI, you don't necessarily have to worry about this. And I said this before, and I will say it again. The better the prompt, the better the output, and we always check our work. Okay. You can't put something into ChatGPT and expect it to be perfect and expect it to sound exactly like you. However, it is getting better because the better the prompts, the more it's going to sound like you, the less editing you may potentially have to do. Now, AI isn't necessarily the problem. The disconnection is, right? Our disconnection saying, oh, I can just go to ChatGPT and make it write me 10 podcast episodes and I can just verbatim read them. No, you can't. That's being disconnected. You have to give it more energy. You have to give it more input. You have to add your thoughts to it. However, you also have to be energetically aligned. You also have to know and be excited and feel like, oh my gosh, I get to do this thing. That's where the connection comes back. So I also want to say templates and tools can absolutely amplify your voice, but you have to train them with your energy. It's not to replace you. So if you're feeling discouraged because, ChatGPT doesn't sound like me. I downloaded these templates and I don't know how to use them. All of that, you just haven't added your energy to it. You haven't used your special nuance, your sauce to magnify that. Because like I said before, I could give you all of the templates that I've ever created, and they might not work the same for you as they did for me. Because if you use them just right out of the box, well, that's me. You're just reverberating me instead of adding yourself to it. So I always want to encourage you, add your special sauce to it. Okay, so if you're thinking about, and this leads really great into the next thing I want to talk about, if you batch your content, okay, when your energy is high. So for all of my sacral girlies, when you have that sacral, yes, that sacral, like, ooh, I want to do this thing. Use that tone to train your AI assistant, right? Use that tone to train ChatGPT or whatever content system you use, right? So if you don't use ChatGPT, which if you don't, I highly recommend that you do. Mostly because there's so many amazing things that you can do with it. You can train it to sound like you. You can train it so that if you're not feeling it one day, it will be there to help you. So, and I don't know, I guess I'm assuming that everybody knows this, but maybe you don't. I don't know. Because you can literally feed ChatGPT your voice notes, your stories, phrases that you use to help it learn your frequency. You can give ChatGPT your human design and gene keys and have it help you based on that. You can also do a lot of like IP protections in ChatGPT, so it's not just slinging your stuff all over the internet. So I wanted to touch just a little bit on this because I think it's such an important way to approach your business. So a couple of mindset reframes. If you find yourself thinking AI makes my content feel fake, I encourage you to shift that into AI becomes an amplifier when I teach it my tone. And then if you feel like templates kill creativity, I would love for you to reframe that to templates create structure for my creativity to flow. Now, with all that said, a couple of things I want to leave you with, right? So if you are feeling like you need some voice activation practices, I want to give you a few things that can help you reconnect to your authentic tone. So the first one is speak before you type. And you can do this by using your phone to record like a 2-minute voice note on what's lighting you up today. Transcribe it and post it. So if you have an iPhone, you can use the voice note and then there's a little transcribe button on there. You can literally copy and paste it. Okay, I would definitely also look and make sure like to edit that a little bit because the transcription is not always 100%. So just be forewarned there. But if you want to activate your voice, do a 2-minute voice note on what is lighting you up today, right? Or even do a story, do 2 stories on what's lighting you up today. Use that as your post, okay? So the second thing, I have 4 things here. The second thing is notice your energy cues. What topics make you talk faster? Use the hand gestures or like feel electric. Those are the magnetic things that you need to talk more about. And a lot of times it's things that you're like, I don't know if I should put that out there. I don't know if people are going to like this. Those are the things that you should be talking about because quite honestly, it's not that we want to go and find the haters because I'm not looking for haters. However, I am looking to magnetize the people who are excited to work with me and feel my energy and push away the people who don't want to work with me because I know I can help anyone, but I can't help everyone. So notice your energy cues. That's thing number 2. Thing number 1, speak before you type. Notice your energy cues. Number 3 is frequency journaling. Now, this is something that I have started kind of sprinkling in. So I don't do this every morning. However, I will do it if I'm feeling particularly stuck or uninspired. and this is something I'll ask myself, what truth wants to be spoken through me today? And usually I will just speak it into my voice note or into ChatGPT and have it create a post based on that. So that is absolutely something that you can do also, right? What truth wants to be spoken through me today? And then the last thing that I want to do is give you some human design aligned batching. So in this, right, how to activate your voice, these practical voice activation practices, speak before you type, notice your energy cues, frequency journaling, and then if you want to batch based on your human design for manifesting generators and generators, create sprints, right? Create what you're doing in sprints when you feel lit up. That is key. If you're not feeling lit up about things, it's probably not going to land. But if you find a time where you're like, oh, I'm really excited to talk about this thing, let's talk about it, right? That is when you want to like hone in on that. Projectors record insights after you've rested. Manifestors capture the urge and then inform, right? So you get these urges and you're like, ooh, yay, yay, yay. Make sure you're telling us about it. Tell us all about your urges. And then reflectors, you want to really wait for clarity before you publish. So allow yourself the time and space to find that clarity. Now, I want to know what your takeaways are from the episode. For me, I want to give you my top 3 takeaways that I have brought to you today. And the number one thing that I hope you take away from this is authenticity is not a performance. It is your presence, right? You are authentic. And then your energetic voice lives in your throat, not in your to-do list, because almost 20 years into business, there's always going to be a mountain of things to do. Let me just tell you, like the list never gets shorter. So use your energetic voice that's in your throat to amplify. And then last but not least, when you speak from your frequency, you will naturally magnetize the right audience. So those things that are lighting you up, those things that you're like, I really want to talk about this, talk about them. Please, I want to hear about them. Like, slide into my DMs. Let me know. I want to hear about all the things that are magnetizing you right now. So we're at the end of the episode, and I just want to say something new that I added to my website. I added a human design chart puller on my website. So I would love for you to go to Maggie Lynn, Lynn, Olson, Olson.com, click HD chart, grab your HD chart, and then slide into my inbox. Let me know who you are, right? So look at your throat center and your gates on your design chart, and then book an offer audit so that we can start refining your messaging and your voice and help you create content that really actually sounds just like you. I'm so excited. Again, as always, make sure you like, share, comment, all the things, slide into my DMs. Let me know what's resonated the most in this episode so that I can keep creating things just like this for you. I can't wait to talk to you again soon. I hope you have an amazing day.